Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Macha here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia, and I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your diversity story with us today.
Hi, my name is Melody Shotade. I am based in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, the Wurrundjeri country, and my practice is inclusive and accessible arts practice. I facilitate work and I also produce arts projects based on this sort of principle. So where to start? My story starts as most people could probably identify as having experience of being on the outer. So my work has been around, well, what are other people's experiences of being on the outer? And what are their experiences on the contrast of that, being included and on the inner? And what that means. And so I found really interesting ways to put work together to put work together so that people can recognise that we're not so apart and different. We can be unified. So yeah, I'd like to talk to you a bit about my practice and how I put that together.
So how did it
all begin? Firstly, I've had a lot of trauma around education and employment, but I've also experienced the bulk of my learning with one-on-one mentoring and my lived experience. These two things have got me through and have really helped me project more positivity into my life and into others' experiences of being included. Clearly people are starting to catch on that difference is actually a strength. And I've been lucky enough to have applied my lived experience of being othered and had direction from some brilliant mentors, as mentioned, and the support of the deaf and disabled arts community, where I've developed creative, inclusive facilitation styles that aims to bridge gaps through providing and combining experiential works that embed access and inclusion. So how do I do this? I like to prepare and make time for gentle reflection and planning for developing and presenting work. Without time, experience life's ins and outs. There is no trust in my own instincts as a person or in a way to build secure, strong community networks. Therefore, there is no painting an accurate picture of what the times actually look like if you don't spend the time to actually reflect. I really like to get consent of the artists that I work with. So I work in a collaboration with other artists. I don't like to say that there's like a hierarchy or anything like that. I like to co-design work. And so I get consent for things like creating group guidelines, sharing lived experiences, and attaining a group concept. In order, all these things together help find commonalities in stories that highlight themes of interculturalism and through a personalised lens. This also works to unify and make for collective visibility. To make things interesting, I like to explore contrast, creativity, and innovation. And I do this by the way of sharing the artist's lived experience of access and inclusion and embedding them into the work to signify what once was different is no longer stands alone.
So tell me something. The concepts that you are bringing up are very non-traditionally European. The concept of collectivism, and where did that come from? Tell us a little bit about your background and what makes you think in this way.
Okay. The construct that I find myself in is I've spent a lot of time in my own head, I guess, having an invisible disability that really gets me to think objectively and in different ways outside of the box, so to speak. I've always had an interest in bringing people together because I've found myself on the outer so much in Australia. So I was born here, but my experience has been that there's always been a degree of separation from my peers. Growing up in a predominantly European family, my father is my only connection to Nigeria, which is my other cultural background. So yeah, it's really about, and he's very supportive, and so is my mum, of bringing people together. So, and as with her family also, is connecting and making people feel welcome and stuff. But there's always been that degree of separation where I've been oh, I feel removed, and what is it about that kind of nuance that everyone kind of experiences, I think, to some degree, and how can I start bridging those gaps?
So you have taken on aspects of your heritage, your Nigerian heritage, deliberately or unconsciously, I would say, right? It's just infused in your whole way of being. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
definitely.
When you talk about othering, explain to us what that experience is like for you.
It's very hard to describe. It's almost like being withdrawn from a social engagement or situation, and I think that othering comes from internally, but also there are little things that give the impression that I am different. And those little things are, it's bringing up a bit of a raw nerve. But yes, there's some ridiculous things I've experienced in, say, for school or whatnot, there's been times where I've been bullied or whatnot in the schoolyard, but that's been kind of corrected by, a couple of good teachers or something like that. And I've learnt to kind of stand my ground a bit too, So, and then in work, having pretty awful bosses originally before entering into the arts, it was quite a traumatic experience, you know, up until the age of 34, I think. So, yeah, I can't really go too deeply into it because it brings up a lot of emotion, raw emotion.
That's incredible that for the first 34 years of your life, you had to experience that until you branched out on your own and found and carved your own space, correct?
I did have help of mentors. So I found that I've needed a lot of encouragement to kind of take back some of that insecurity in myself, you know, and to start to believe in my own ability, and going through this new process of really taking time. Something that a lot of people have kind of quickly forgotten about after COVID. You know, we were enforced this time. And so now we're kind of, you know, forgotten what it's like to be, you know, segregated or, you know, isolated from the community and stuff. But yeah, I really want to bring that no obligation to, you know, to have an outcome, you know, with the creative process, you know, really start to really get into that juicy community self, like, you know, processing feeling, you know?
Yes, yeah. Now, let's go back to interculturalism, what it means and why it's important for people to understand.
Yeah, well, there's so many, like, I take myself for an example. I am a brown-skinned Nigerian, Australian, disabled woman, queer woman, and I think it's so important to recognise these different aspects, because I think that there's so much to offer from being different and from an intersectional or intercultural background. I think that people like myself have a lot to, or I know I have a lot to offer in terms of lived experience and a different perspective on just the general discord. So, yeah.
Wow. Now, throughout your work experience, have you found it difficult to break into spaces where people wouldn't normally see people like you? How have you found in the work experience?
Yes. Okay, so when I was doing more sort of practical-based trade work, absolutely. It was very competitive, and I found a lot of like direct racism and, you know, involved in that, you know, to the point of breakdown. But in the arts, I think it's been a little bit, people have been like a lot more accepting, particularly in the disability community, because I think people understand that, you know, what it's like to feel isolated and othered. I like to kind of say that because it really speaks to me. Yeah. So
it's been challenging.
Yeah, it's been
Very
challenging. And I feel like, you know, I feel like some of my work is a little bit under-recognised, where, you know, it could probably do with a little bit more promotion for myself. I think yeah, it doesn't sound very humble me saying that now, but generally, if you know me, I don't like to speak up my work. Yeah.
So let's talk about your disability. It's invisible. What is the condition? And why is it difficult for people to see it and be able to relate to you?
Okay, so usually when you are approaching the subject of disability, I think generally people in the community say it's not really good to actually ask someone what their disability is, but I'm happy to talk about mine. Just thought I'd put that in for context. So my disability is I have a mental illness, and it's difficult for people to see it because, well, I guess some things give it away, but generally people don't notice because another sort of nuanced word is like well presented or, or whatnot. But yeah, it's still there, and it's just not as apparent as it would be, in a physical disability in that sense, although it is physical because it's my brain, but you can't see that. So
yeah, and my apologies for the way I asked. That was totally out of ignorance, and thank you for bringing it to my awareness. I should have framed that question a little bit differently. But I know that it must be challenging. And I guess for me, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes and kind of experience it from your perspective. Because, at a glance, I wouldn't have seen it unless you had mentioned it to me. Yeah. So that's got to be challenging too for you.
Yes. Yeah. I do find it challenging in that, people assume that I'm okay. Yes. When, and I'm not very like forthright in saying, hey, I'm not okay. And I mean, only to the people I'm closest to because of the stigma that's involved with that sort of thing. But, I really value advocating for my own self-care and my own welfare as well. I don't like talking on behalf of other people and their disabilities and stuff, but it's challenging. It's definitely challenging, but I have my art that speaks for me, so that makes life a little bit easier having that expression. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that artistic expression is really a great outlet for you to be visible and be seen and be able to represent. So it's really quite fascinating that you managed to find that outlet for yourself as a form of expression. So in an ideal world where employers, businesses, organizations could fully relate to the day-to-day challenges that you experience, tell me 3 things that can be done to improve the way things are now so that people do take into account people who are different.
I think time is definitely one factor. Time to build relationships, solid relationships. Another one would be, I think, consultation. So yeah, definitely consulting with people who are different and making them part of the decision-making process. I think that should definitely come in first. And I think, sorry for my disordered thinking, but that it happens. And also, I think, just general, like, good listening. like, you know, like really active listening, I think is important, to listen to people like myself and really engage with what they're saying and their message, because I think from that you learn so much.
I love that. Now, how much does your cultural heritage infuse in your work? Does that come through very clearly? Or does that influence you in any way, do you think?
My cultural heritage, you know, I think the stories, and I think my dad is very imaginative. So he's got an imagination like no other. And I think that is part of his history. You know, his lived experience of himself has come through me, you know.
Yes.
He's experienced a lot of like colonialism and, you know, a lot of sort of distress, and that's made his imagination just so, you know, I think there's a lot of compassion learnt from, you know, my past. And I wish I knew more about my past, like my history, my father's cultural history. I feel like this is the path that I'm now leaning towards, like in this stage of my life. I feel freer and more liberated to explore this. So, yeah.
I love that.
This is the next stage, yeah?
This is the next phase in your life.
Yeah.
So if I was to take you back to the younger you, that young girl who was struggling in school, and you could give her 3 nuggets of wisdom based on how you're living your life right now, what would you have wanted somebody to say to you at that time?
I would have said, or would have wanted to say to her myself, is you're okay, you know. Please don't ever stop feeling, and you're wiser than you know.
I love that. And now let me take you into the future. You are now 90 years old, and you're surrounded by your family, your dogs, your cats, whoever's going to be with you at that time. Based on how you're trying to change the world, if you could have a conversation with the 90-year-old you, what would you say to her, this wise woman who's leading you to that point?
I'd say don't hold on to things. I'd say, yeah, don't have any regrets. And also, it's a good question. It's very interesting. But I'd definitely say, yeah, let go. Just, you know, be.
Stuff.
Yeah.
The reason why I like to ask that question is that a lot of people don't realize that the essence of the future you is already in you. That wise woman is already here, and she is the person you are becoming. And we forget just to tap into that energy. Sometimes when I go through my own personal struggles and I'm trying to figure things out, I ask her questions. Like, I will just go to sleep after I do my meditation, and I sleep on a question like, what is my next step? And then I wake up in the morning with these light bulb moments, you know, these brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
And it's because your subconscious mind doesn't stop thinking when you're sleeping. It's busy working these things out for you. Or I could be talking to someone the next day and I mention what I'm going through, and they'll say something, I'll say something, and before I know it, I've got the solution to whatever I'm trying to figure out.
Mm.
I love sharing that with people because it's a brilliant
Beautiful.
way of
It is. I
trying
loved it. I
to
love that exercise. Woohoo! Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, because all of these knowings, these promptings, the things that get us to do what we do on a day-by-day basis, they're like seeds that were planted in you before you were born. That's why no
Oh
two
my,
people will ever do the same thing, right?
yeah.
We're
My
all so
goodness.
unique.
That's right.
We
But
come into the world wired with everything we need. My grandmother used to say that when a baby is born, we're born with our little fists clutched because we're holding on to all the gifts, everything we need to unleash onto the world. And some people go to their graves with their gifts.
yeah,
So as we go through our struggles in life, all we're doing is just opening up our hands and unleashing those gifts to the world.
that's right.
So
That's
thank you
right.
for your work. Thank you for what
Oh,
you're doing in the arts world.
thank you.
I was
Thank you
really
too.
fascinated when I was brought your profile to my attention on LinkedIn. And I thought, wow, she lives right here in Melbourne. Next time we have to meet in person.
Oh, I'd love that. I would so love that. That would be like a dream. Thank you so much, Gertrude.
That would be
Let's make a time
awesome.
for coffee.
Definitely. And we'll love to see how we can invite you to be one of our speakers at our next event. I'll be curating
Beautiful.
an event called the Diversity Connector, probably late November, beginning of December. Once I've
Right.
firmed up the
Okay.
venue and the dates, I'll let you know. And
Okay.
I'd love you to be one of our speakers at our events this year.
Oh, love to be. Love to be. That would just be like a dream.
Love
We'll
it.
have to talk before then, though, I think.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'll definitely catch up with you. I'm busy firming up venues at the moment. But thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming online and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Oh, thank you. That's thank you in Auslan. All right.